and we have a very concerned, environmentally oriented customer base. What started this discussion in our community was, what this is these bars show you our capacity. These are our peaking capacity, our intermediate capacity, and our baseload capacity. And a lot of our units are quite old and are going to be retiring. And so this shows you that we need base capacity by about 2020. When we started this process, we needed base capacity by 2011. The curves have turned down because of conservation and the economy problems. But we still feel the need to go ahead with our biomass project because of the benefits it brings for system reliability. I'll talk more about that. Because of our older fleet. So currently we have a lot of large contracts with other companies to firm up our capacity because of reliability issues. The way you plan generation is you have to anticipate when your generators retire or your load grows. And in America, we have to have something called a reserve margin, extra. And so we put all our reserve margins into a pool, and we all share that, so that if one of our units goes down, people will back it up. But it's very expensive to do that. So based on that, we started talking. The other criteria is fuel costs. And you can see this is a little bit old. Gas prices are actually down a little bit from this graph. But you can see where the price of oil, gas, and coal are. And about 65% of our energy comes from coal. Electrical energy comes from coal. So when we started the dialogue with the community, we had this high cost of fossil fuel, a lot of concern about global warming, CO2. We used to call that the elephant in the room. And at some point, after looking at the options, and at the time, the lowest cost option was coal. America has a lot of coal. We ship it down from Kentucky by rail to Gainesville. But the City Commission decided that we, as a community, were going to meet the Kyoto protocols, which is to reduce our carbon emissions by 7% from 1990, which, we've been growing a lot since 1990, so that's a pretty heavy goal to hit. So we have two parts to our strategy. One is energy efficiency, conservation, and that's why we got into the district cooling business. Our district cooling plant that makes electricity, it makes chilled water, it also makes steam because it's serving a hospital. 80% thermally efficient using natural gas, 80%. That's pretty good. So energy efficiency and renewable energy. I'll talk about renewable energy here in Florida. We don't really have, today's kind of breezy, but most of the time there's no wind to speak of. It's very still. There's not enough wind to justify developing a wind project here compared to the Midwest or in the coastal areas. We don't have any tides in Florida, because Florida, where we are on a latitude, there's not much tidal energy. And obviously we're not near the beach anyway. Florida is a sedimentary state. There's no geothermal here. You have to go down 4,000 feet before you hit any granite at all. And there's no temperature down there to speak of. So that means we have two choices, solar and biomass. On solar, we have solar water heaters where you make hot water for the house. We have rebates for that. And we also have photovoltaic, solar electricity. And I think you all are on what I would call a fact-finding mission. We went on a fact-finding mission to Germany and came back, and we adopted the first European-style solar feed-in tariff in the USA, which means that we pay a price that makes solar profitable. And so solar is going gangbusters in Gainesville. In terms of biomass, landfill gas is available, and we're using as much of that as we can, but there's just a limited supply of landfill gas around here. And we do have a project, for example, a county south of here, where they collect the gas, they make electricity, and then they ship it to us over the grid. But the thing to remember about North Central Florida is, I believe North Central Florida produces 40% of the paper pulp for the United States. Heavy silviculture. Silviculture is a word for forestry. Heavy forestry up here in North Central Florida. There's lots of waste wood. When you harvest trees to make paper pulp or chip and saw or timber, you leave a lot of stuff in the field. And here in Florida, that typically gets burned out in the field, and it makes smoke and pollution. And then there's landfill gas. I talked about that. We talked about solar, but I'm mostly going to talk about biomass. It's very available. It's cost effective. We believe that using certain forms of biomass is carbon neutral. And it's because of that, what IPCC considers to be carbon neutral has a lot to do with our biomass collection, and also because of our highly environmental community. How do we preserve the forests? How do we preserve biodiversity? We don't want to do what Ireland did, cut down all the trees, or what England did. We don't want that to happen here. So we'll talk about how we protect the forests. We have a special program for that. This is just, we look at a lot of different species. The University of Florida is doing some interesting research with elephant grass in particular. And we talked about how there are times if you went outside it would smell like a barbecue because of all the burning that's going on in our area. And so it's a lot of NOx is emitted, and open fires like this produce a fair amount of dioxin. And so if you burn it in a controlled environment, you reduce the NOx, you reduce the dioxins, you reduce the particulates. So that's one of the appeals to the biomass plant that we have proposed. There's lots of ways to use biomass. These are just the technologies that we reviewed. And what we realized was, by the way, this shows you how many acres of softwood are available within a 50-mile radius. You can see within 50 miles, REC this is us, the Gainesville Renewable Energy Center, lots and lots of biomass in our area. So, you know, we can doodle this till we're blue in the face. There's lots of options. You know, do you want CFBs? Do you want bubbling bed? You know, do you want some kind of anaerobic digestion? What do you want to do? So what we did is we opened a multi-phase process where we said anybody with any idea can give us a proposal. It would not be binding. In other words, if we picked you, we wouldn't, you know, you wouldn't have to produce at that price, because to get a lot of people to come and give us proposals, you can't make it too expensive to produce the proposal, particularly if you're doing smaller projects. To have a proposal with pricing, if I said $250,000, you know it's low to produce a proposal with pricing. But we wanted as many ideas as we could get. So we did a letter of interest approach, where we got a wide range of technologies and all kinds of indicative pricing. And what we discovered from that is that as a municipal utility, we could not beat the price of a private sector or investor-owned utility, because we can't get, in America, municipal utilities, we don't pay taxes, so there's no tax advantage. And tax advantages are very important to the economics in our country. So we went through a multi-phase process where we got it down to 3, and then competitively bid against the price. And the technology that emerged is what these guys are going to tell you all about. We're very happy with it. It's a bubbling bed technology. I think the boilers will be made in Finland, right across the Baltic Sea. I hope I got that right. And risk. You know, we're not in the fuel business. We are in the fuel business. We buy coal. We buy gas. That's a commodity. You know, we know what the prices are. There's federal, there's, you know, international exchanges. Biomass, there's not a liquid market for biomass. It's a whole new world, and so we wanted somebody else to take the risk. So in our proposals, risk mitigation, and I'm going to talk about risk mitigation. It took us a year, once we picked these wonderful people, it took us years to negotiate the contract. There's some really interesting things about the contract that I'd like to share with you. And the project is called Gainesville Renewable Energy Center. This is it. This is our coal plant. Here's where the new power plant is going to go, 100 megawatts. And we don't own it at all. We lease the land. It's a long-term lease. And American Renewables is going to build it, own it, operate it, and under a contract, we take all the output. It's going to be fueled with clean, woody biomass. An interesting thing, a little sidebar on the site, is that there is no surface water discharge. We take groundwater, use it for cooling, but because of environmental constraints, we can't put it in any streams. And so we use it, then we dry it out, Then we have brine salts, so we landfill the brine salts. I don't know if you have anything like that in your country, but we use the water all the way. So, I don't think I need to go through that. In the long run, we believe that this is going to be a economic benefit for our community. We negotiated the contract to be as fixed a price as possible. In fact, everything is fixed, except for the fuel component, which is market-based, and a small piece of the O&M, which is based on chemical prices. When you compare that to our projections of what it would take to build natural gas combined cycle, this is comparing against combined cycle, which is going to be for the near-term future, looks like the market in Florida. In the early years, right now we're riding on this curve right here because gas prices are low. So when it comes online in 2014, it's going to be pretty substantially above market. Now, I want to notice that this is not scaled because of the pricing is proprietary. But the relationships are valid. And so we think it'll go into market maybe 8 years out. And so you can see why the community of Gainesville is willing to step up and do renewable energy. If we wanted the cheapest cost power right away, we would do one of these guys right over here. And so we get the flat contract, but when we show you this line for natural gas, that's wrong. Natural gas looks like this. As you know, because you've got other people providing your gas. Whereas with the fuel contracts, it really does look like this. It's very smooth, a lot less volatility. That's a big benefit. Having a new generating unit of any kind, of any scale of a baseload unit will improve our reliability. It's a 30-year contract. Over 30 years, this has a lot of present value savings for our communities. Gas pricing is very volatile. And right now, new coal units, there's basically a moratorium on that in Florida. And coal is really having a hard time getting permitted in the United States. It's going to improve our fuel diversity. So what we're doing now is there's also a 30% cost savings based on a tax incentive that is available from the federal government. In the fuel markets, if you're the first there, there's a definite advantage, particularly we'll be the first one out there signing up contracts for this material. And because we anticipate that, although it hasn't happened in Florida, there'll be a renewable portfolio standard, which you have a big one, 45% it looks like. And we think that in the long term, the United States will have some form of a carbon tax. It's going to create jobs in our area. Instead of taking our money and sending it away to Houston, to send it away up to New York, it'll stay in the local economy. It'll create 700 jobs. It has created a lot of interest already. People are coming from all over the world, as you may have noticed. I just want to say a few things about the contract design. If this bores you, let me know and I'll stop and let the technical guys go. The counterparties are American Renewables, which there are 3 holding companies. I'll let Josh talk about that. We opted for 100% of the output. We really didn't need 100 megawatts right away, but the bigger the unit, the cheaper per kilowatt. So there's a lot of economies of scale. And so we opted to take 100% of the output because we will eventually need it. We're going to grow into it. The kind of risks that we manage with this contract, depletion in terms of will there always be wood, long-term competitive position, ownership risks. It's a 30-year contract. There's no dollar per kilowatt month charge. There's no fixed charge. You only pay for the energy that's produced. I don't know how that compares to your current practice. That's very unusual in America. There's a constant non-fuel energy charge per megawatt hour, and then there's a fuel charge per megawatt hour, and a small variable O&M, and property taxes are passed through. If the unit breaks down, American Renewables takes the risk. If it has a new boiler, they take the risk. If there's liquidated damages if they don't meet the 90% capacity factor. We get all the environmental attributes, the carbon credits, renewable energy credits, any excess allowances, and unknown future regulations for change of law in these particular environmental attributes.